Tales from the Crypt.
Hello, boils and ghouls. Welcome to an EC Comics review episode of Dads from the Crypt. My name is Jason. I'll be your host today. Joining me, as often does, is Mr. Alan Katz. Welcome.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Jason.
Always a pleasure to have you. All right. Well, before we dive in, what you been working on?
You know, these days, the TV business is so screwed up that I have devoted myself entirely to podcasting. And in addition to the How Not to Make a Movie podcast, which is kind of where we all started. I started with you guys after I did your podcast. There's The Donor, a DNA horror story, which is out into the world. It's a 7-episode series, an absolutely true story about a guy in the mid-1980s. He worked his way through medical school as an anonymous sperm donor and jumped forward 25 years. He's a successful radiologist, and a new company called 23andMe opens up, and he thinks, great, I want to know about my health genes. So he sends his DNA into this growing DNA database, and it never occurred to him the implications. Suddenly he lost his donor anonymity. And suddenly 7 total strangers found Daddy because they were also customers of 23andMe, except 6 of them had no idea that their actual biological father was a sperm donor. And that's what The Donor is about. It's a complete 7-episode podcast, absolutely true story. You have never heard a story like this before, and it's absolutely true. That's at thedonorpodcast.com. I'm about to, there in between now and the end of the year, there are 2 additional podcasts that will drop. One is called The Hall Closet, which is another absolutely true story about a woman named Donna Hall who grew up in a lower tier crime family. So it's true crime from inside a true crime family. They weren't the Corleones. They were several tiers down. But her family still made national headlines with their criminal behavior. And she discovered at the age of 46, having grown up in this crime family, always feeling like, I don't belong. Yeah, she was right. She was the product of a sperm donor.
Oh, I see a theme developing here, Alan.
Well, she was one of the donor conceived people I interviewed for The Donor. And when I heard her story, I said, Donna, you are a podcast unto yourself. And I'll throw down one more. There's a terrific one coming called Prisoner X, which is Prisoner X with John Kiriakou. It's about people who are prisoners here in America and around the world, but who shouldn't be. And the podcast tells the story of these people, not just to tell the story, but to inform the audience what they can do to help make these people, these prisoners, ex-prisoners.
Very cool. And where can people follow you to hear about all these? What's your main outlet?
You can also go to, I guess the best place to go to I need an organizing principle, don't I? I'm working on that. The best place always to go to is the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. And that's ground zero for right now for everything that's happening. So.
Excellent. And you're talking about the website or the Instagram account?
Oh God, go to the website. The Instagram account. Holy cow! The Instagram.
Some people get news.
My wife just reamed me out. She said, "Yeah, you put up another." I put up. See, this is how I just don't understand how to work Instagram. She said, "You keep putting these things up in posts. You're supposed to put them up as stories." I said,
I don't know the difference in the post.
And I don't understand the difference, and I don't know how to do one versus the other. So Instagram, I'm still at sea, but
okay.
One more piece of exciting news. My little company that makes all these podcasts, the Costard and Touchstone Productions, we have an investor.
Ooh.
We are literally someone's about to put up $250,000 to take us from point A to point I don't know where.
Wait, someone's actually making money off a podcast? I know that was possible.
I don't know if I'm going to. Well, none of this money is going into my pocket. It's for Costard and Touchstone Productions, so it's not. None of it is aimed at me. But they believe in what our little company is doing in the podcast that we're making, and they want to see us go from a little podcast company that could to a much bigger podcast company that is.
Yeah, it's exciting.
So, but let's talk comic books.
Yeah, one quick announcement from me. The Mike Vosberg documentary, Recipe for Talent, premiered at LA Comic-Con. It went very, very well. For anybody that wasn't able to make it and would like to watch it, you can go to the Dads from the Crypt Patreon account. And I believe, if I set up correctly, if you become a member at the $5 tier, you can stream it through there. Or I think you can pay $10 to just stream it. You don't have to be a member. But it's all members are always nice to do. So, or you want to become a member, cancel your account, fine. Or you can become a member for a couple months and just hang out. It'd be great. Either way, love to have you. Hope everyone enjoys it. But today we're talking Epitaphs from the Abyss, number 4. That just came out. Now, Alan, last time we did this, you did a wonderful dramatic reading of the Gravediggers intro.
Oh, gosh. You want that again?
Invite you to get us in the spooky mood.
Holy shit, I have to put my glasses on and move to the
other.
You're
getting ready. While you're doing that, I'll set the scene. So we have a great little panel, full page of the Gravedigger, kind of in profile. And he's talking to some sort of ghoul hovering above him in a screeching, yelling position with its mouth agape, its hair wild, pushed back. And the Gravedigger has an eye towards us with a nice little grin. And he says,
"Ah, well, hello again. You're welcome to stay for our little session of scream therapy. So much pent-up trauma and tension. Letting it out every so often does wonders for the nerves by shredding them to bits. As you can see, my new acquaintance here is working through a lot. But he's never looked deader, wouldn't you agree? While he tuckers himself out, rejoice, for I come bearing new epitaphs from the abyss to stimulate your own primordial fears and deviant urges. First, a morbid morsel about those who go in search of monsters and dead from exposure. Then one loving husband offers his beloved the gift that keeps on taking in the perfect pearl. And last but not least, one of those dreadful online gurus sinks their teeth into a new kind of grind and under the influence. Be patient. We'll save you space, as you'll be screaming to join us soon enough."
And scene. Very well done. Very well done. All right. So we start with our first story. It takes place at a diner, someplace cold and desolate. I have a feeling this might be somewhere in Canada, as we'll get to in a moment, because he references kilometers instead of miles. That was my big tip off.
It does. It also references Ontario.
Does it? Okay, I missed that part.
Yeah, and I don't think they were talking about here in Southern California.
No. So basically, we got a guy. He's bit of a long hair. He's got a nice warm coat on. He's trying to figure out what he wants to eat at this cafe he just came from his cousin's funeral, but he said the food was pathetic. He's still hungry, so he wants to get a bite. And he's talking about how he is a quote content creator. He produces a streaming series called Exposure to get a skeptical look at the so-called paranormal crap, as he says it. But he doesn't have any new folk tales to follow up on, and cryptids, until the waitress mentions the bog ape. And supposedly it's a creature that lives near a lake nearby. That's kind of a large moss-covered creature that carries around a bone or a stone of some sort to murder people with. And some people recently went missing. So, of course, he sees this as an opportunity. He calls up his producer and he gets a map written on the back of a napkin. And, of course, they tell him how far it is in kilometers. And he says, no, no, no. How far is it in miles? You know, normal person distance. Which is a little bit of a character building there. It's showing this guy's pretty much an asshole. Anyways, he meets up with his producer and like a cameraman sort. They go off into the wilderness. Following the map, they find some bear tracks. They follow to a lake, and then they find some other tracks, which look like what could be the bog ape. They follow that to a wooded area in the thick of it, where they find some human remains, and they're under the impression that someone is setting them up. Someone's creating a hoax for them to get to bring exposure to their town. I think is what they're guessing. But then one of their crewmates looks like he's captured and hung upside down, and we see a pair of red eyes in the background. And then the bog ape comes out and shoves the stone instrument, it looks like, through the face of the producer. And then the main character grabs his camera, smashing it into the bog ape's face, where he turns out it's actually a person in disguise. And it was, in fact, a host. But turns out there's accomplices, because Chop, the main character, gets his head chopped off. And turns out there's a cannibal group that are doing their own hunting, and it's all one big ploy to get people to come out by the lure of the legend of the bog ape. And that's the end. All right, Alan, what did you think of this one?
You know, I give this one an A- B+. It's an obvious setup. You know, you kind of, you know, there are some dead giveaways. Yeah. But hey, don't tell them about the monster. It's pretty much okay. So it's like a Scooby-Doo story, except that the Scooby team gets eaten at the end. So that's the structure. You know, you got to buy into the structure and just, you know, let it go. Actually, the setup and the run, you know, getting into the bog is terrific. The main guy, the asshole guy, the one problem in the story, it's not a problem. He goes from being skeptic to being, oh my God, this is a real thing, a little quickly. There's that one panel. Okay, that's it. We're calling it. I mean, this footage is gold, but we need to leave now. In one panel, he buys. You know, so it's at some point he's going to have to swing around, and it's important that he be skeptical at the beginning, because otherwise there's no dynamic tension.
Right.
So it's one of the traps of the storytelling. You have to sell a character's reversal, which is a very doable thing. Tricky to do in a comic book, simply because you have panels, you have one or two panels. And a nuance that could happen over the course of 3 seconds of film, you can't necessarily do in the panels of a comic book. But otherwise, I rather like this one.
Yeah, I like this one quite a bit too. The art is good. It's, you know, it's not hyper stylized, but but it has style. And again, you're kind of like, okay, yeah, they're gonna find something in there. And then again, it's interesting reading something on paper versus reading it digitally. Because I like to try to note where the page breaks are, because we have a whole panel where they find the bog ape, and given that panel, you think, oh crap, this monster is real. And it isn't until you turn the next page that you see that's actually a person. So it kind of had me that, okay, they're being eaten by a monster until that one turn. until you literally turn the page, and then it's revealed that's really just a guy in that suit. So I thought it did a good job setting us up with that, but there are also little hints. Like it stuck with me for at least like a split second the first time I read it, that he uses a stone to kill people, because animals don't usually use tools. That's like a higher intelligence thing. But you kind of gloss over that because you don't know exactly the nature of this monster. So maybe that's just a shtick. But then once you see the person, like, yeah, of course he would use a tool to kill people with. So I thought that was a nice little hiding in plain sight clue that you don't really, like more subconscious. You're kind of like, oh, that's interesting.
To its credit, it really does a lot of heavy lifting, and it does it pretty efficiently. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I like the story quite a bit, actually.
I'm down with it.
All right. Moving on, we have The Perfect Pearl. And this one right off the bat tells you this is a fairy tale. And that's exactly like how I think it's meant to be read. Not too literally, but as a parable type. And we have a woman running to an elevator. She meets a handsome man. They kind of have a meet cute. And she's wearing a pearl necklace. The necklace breaks, and he picks it up and says, "Oh, let me fix it for you. My niece does, and I do for friendship bracelets." So he fixes the necklace, and then we kind of get a little montage of them falling in love, buying a house, doing the whole nesting gig. But eventually, he starts to. You see a bit of gaslighting coming on, where like she's not appreciated enough at work. So he tells her, "Oh, you can quit. You'll find another job soon enough. This color looks better on you, not that color." Excuse me. And then until she's like, well, she's just kind of staying at home, doesn't have a job. He asks her to start making him breakfast, but she doesn't do the eggs the way she likes, and gets mad at her. It's kind of an escalation of toxic relationship. And while this is happening, she's complaining that her necklace is getting too tight when she doesn't follow his orders, isn't doing what makes him happy. The necklace gets tighter, but when she obeys, the necklace gets looser and looser, and she eventually conforms to pretty much everything he wants her to be. And the necklace gets longer and longer, but it's weighing her down. Until she decides to hang herself from a chandelier using the pearl necklace. And let me get the text here. It says, "And while Polly didn't live, she's now happily ever after." And we're kind of left with a very striking panel of her hanging from the chandelier and the husband on the ground in a shocked state. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Alan, go ahead.
This is funny. That last panel is terrific.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a story where the tail is wagging the dog so hard that everything gets clobbered by that process. And consequently, none of the characters really feel real because, well, they're not. Everyone's in service of that last panel.
Well, again, like a fairy tale.
Yes. But at some point, if in the middle of the fairy tale, you're going, who are these people? The effect of the fairy tale is lost because you still need to feel connected. And so I don't know the answer to the problem. I'm simply saying this is when we were doing Tales from the Crypt. This was a problem that we encountered with probably 80% of the comics that we had to deal with, of the 100 some odd comics, which was, there was a great idea for a payoff and everything was in service of the payoff. And sometimes that would cause, to try to explain how a character would do such a thing sometimes is hard because they really wouldn't. Mm-hmm. It's about the payoff. And my gut was, as she's responding to the, now they're tighter, now they're looser. Are you baffled by this? In which case, if you're baffled, why is it looser? Well, okay, certainly you can count how many pearls are on a necklace. And then you can ask the question, wait, I know I just counted that there were 20 and now there were 25. I didn't put them on. Who did? You know, if I'm bumping into that moment going, well, why isn't she asking this question? Why is this a mystery? Where's the logical human being? I've stepped outside the story. And again, I'm only stepping outside the story because the story is in service of the ending and not who this person is. Yeah, fairy tale. But like I said, the characters still have to.
Yeah.
They have to feel authentic enough.
Yeah,
and that's where I think this one
one
loses me. The lack of authenticity in terms of who.
Yeah. This one might have been a bit of a casualty of page count. They just didn't have enough pages to flesh out the character, but that's, their job is to figure out how to get that across in that many pages. I think, again, because it starts off. What's that?
If they're professionals, yes, I agree. That's their job.
I don't know.
I'd say that's what they're getting paid the big bucks for, but I don't think anyone's getting paid big bucks here.
Right. Again, the fact that it tells you it's a fairy tale right from the start makes me have a little more, take a little bit less, more allegorical. Yeah, I definitely would have liked to see a little bit more of who she is before. And then again, if this was I'm picturing this as like a Tales from the Crypt episode. It would be like a magical pearl necklace that he gives her, and he's doing some sort of witchcraft or sorcery to get her to control her, because that's really what it is. It's a story about control. And that would kind of, I think, fix some of the narrative things that you might be.
She comes into she comes into the story. Like, all we know about her is that she gets on an elevator and she's wearing pearls.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, yes, if there was time to invest in who she is, this person who allows herself to be so easily controlled.
Right. That's where we're again, if the pearl necklace had some magical property or something.
P.T. Anderson did that Paul Anderson did that terrific movie a couple years ago about the designer who his wife is poisoning him, and he knows it, and that's part of their trust story. And it's quite a perverse little dance, but by the time you get to the end, you appreciate the little love dance for what it is. It's just their odd relationship. Well, okay, there's something like that would help explain her willingness to so easily be seduced into a terrible end.
Right. Yeah, or maybe a panel about her family trying to come and get her, to give us a little more of that, and then what her reaction would be. Okay. I was a little higher on this, and you're kind of making me think it through a little bit more deeply.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I've ruined it for you.
No, you didn't ruin it, but yeah, it's kind of, I really like the artwork. It's a little more classical style in here. Again, I like some of the themes it's going on, and I like, a shocking ending. The last panel is really, really well done. I like the use of negative spaces. That's really nice. But yeah, again, I think this would work. I would love to see what this would look like as a Tales from the Crypt episode. What you guys would do with this.
Oh, yeah. If one could invest in the character, well, then you could really even find a way to twist it at the end. That's what I would look for, so that the last panel looks like, oh my God, he's shocked he caused his wife to hang herself, but there could be some little piece of retribution that she left behind to nail him.
Like maybe he's wearing a pearl bracelet or something.
or something he doesn't know is about to happen to him. That she set something in motion. I would that hey, you're hanging me. I'm about to hang you. You don't even know it.
Right.
That's what I would construct, because you got to have some B story to distract from the A story.
Right. All right. Now our third story is called Under the Influence. And here we have, as living in California, we're way too familiar with, is the fashion, health guru, fitness influencer. Dime a dozen.
You're saying the whole rest of the world doesn't have that?
Mm-hmm. I think LA is like the capital of that kind of thing.
Yikes.
Anyways, so she's hawking some miracle cure called Level Up. Of course, it's LVL. Using some sort of exotic plant that she found in some jungle. If it says it, I don't remember. Anyway, she's preparing for ClaireCon. Her name is Claire. A big convention where she's going to have all of her followers come up, and they're all going to get their hands on some Level Up. But then the gentleman that gave them the extract shows up unannounced, and tells them that he didn't actually finish the trials, the testing trials on the substance, which, okay, even on the mice. It's not like they did human trials before putting this on the market. They just tested on mice, but didn't actually let them finish. And it turns out, it does weight loss, but also increases the metabolism and your energy to the point where you start eating ravenously. And what he means by eating ravenously is he gave it to a group of rats, and they all started eating one another until there's one alpha rat. But of course, they say that the product's already been purchased, and they've already got their orders shipping out. So they kick him out the door, and the ClaireCon has to go on. And then at the very end, we see them backstage, and she's looking a little. Looking like she's a little tense. It looks like she's a little strung out. Her boyfriend or whoever that guy or helper, whoever it is, "Are you ready to go?" And then she kind of looks at him a little crazily and says, "I'm great." And then she comes out on stage with his body all mangled, and we get
what's left of it.
What's left of it. We get a flashback to the scientist saying that he did find a way to fix the powder. He just has to remove the dangerous compounds. It'll be safe for everyone. But it's too late. We see Claire kind of in a yoga position, surrounded by dead bodies, looking like she pretty much ate everyone at the sold out convention. And that's the ending. Al?
It's fun. I love the inventor guy who looks like Joel Silver.
I was wondering that.
To me, that looked distinctly like Joel. That was intriguing. Much suspension of disbelief from a storytelling perspective. This is like you suddenly got to the. Here's what I would compare it to. It's like you're doing a high dive and you save all the really difficult tricks for the last moment before you hit the water.
Mm-hmm.
Because here, the last three panels is like twist, twist, twist. And then it's over. And it's just the sudden, oh, by the way, we can fix it. Hey, we can solve this problem comes, like I said, it's all the twists come too late in a sense, and it's so compressed that you feel kind of slapped upside the head by them. So it doesn't have a satisfying ending because all the twists are crammed together at one time. Right. That was my take.
Yeah, this one just felt like way rushed. It's a little the whole like I didn't bother finishing my rat experiments.
That was that's problem. One is going to forgive certain story logic problems, but some are just insurmountable. It's who are these people?
Yeah. And the fact, I know it's obviously, and they make a point saying, well, it's not FDA regulated, but there still has to be some like proof or so. I'm assuming there's got to be something to show that we did our due diligence on this testing before you can sell it.
We live in a litigious society. Just the fear of being sued out the ass would be enough to who are these people?
Right. And then that like second to last panel, he also looks a bit like Newman from Seinfeld. And the way he's talking about, I actually to remove the dangerous compounds, like I think it would have been better if he come up with a little bit more of a twist, like, oh, if you didn't drink it with water, if there was something that like could have saved her if she didn't do it at the last minute or something. I'm sure someone can come up with a better idea. They could have done a little bit something more clever with that bit. I
absolutely agree. It's a little flat.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a lot flat.
Yeah, or what it could have been like, oh, I was mistaken. Only happens on small mammals, and you see her and realize, oh no, she's just crazy.
There's something in the premise.
Mm-hmm.
I think they gave it short shrift.
Yeah. A little bit more fleshing out would really help this. Now that you mentioned it, the last two, the second and the third ones could have used a little more.
It feels like we have a deadline. What do we got? Let's slap on the artwork. Let's
not even much of a deadline, more just like a shortage of pages. And I don't know enough about how this stuff works to know if.
But if you had the time, you'd solve the storytelling problems. I mean, surely, yeah, even as doing graphic novels, you understand you cannot tell the story successfully within this short amount of time, either expand it or tell a different story.
Mm-hmm.
If this is the space limitation, well, what we used to do at Tales from the Crypt, we would promise when we would hire a Billy Friedkin, let's say, and we'd meet with Billy beforehand. We'd say, look, we're not going to, you get 5 days to prep, 5 days to shoot. Don't think for 2 seconds just because you're Billy Friedkin, you're going to get an extra minute because you're Billy Friedkin. No, the schedule is the schedule. God, I had a point there and I just lost it. What were we talking about?
Well, just the page length. So, like, yeah.
No.
Once you set that limit, it's up to you to work within it.
Oh yes, and so we would say to Billy, thank you. We said to Billy, we're going to give you a script that's going to be makeable within the schedule, within a 5-day schedule. We're not going to hand you a script that you're going to turn to us and go, but this is not impossible to make in 5 days. We will never do that to you. So it is incumbent upon the people telling the story to know the space requirements and the story requirements that have to fit within the space.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't successfully, and the ending is kind of important, you got to recognize when it's time to cut bait and do another story or reimagine the story. Hey, you're going to have to come at the story from a different angle so that you can tell it within the space that you have.
Yeah. All right. Well, to wrap this up, for as much as we complained, actually, I think this is a pretty solid issue. I love the artwork.
I'd still rather have it than not have it.
Yeah, I find something to enjoy in all three of these. The second one, I think at first I enjoyed a lot more. Once you kind of got into it, okay, fine. But I rather enjoyed that one. At least I just enjoyed the kind of how unconventional it was. But yeah, the first one is probably the most solid of the three. Now I'm just kind of scrolling through it. Would you agree?
I would. Oh, it's not even. Yeah, it's not even a question. Yes, the first one is terrific. The second two have great promise.
Mm-hmm. I still think the second one can work. on its own. It definitely could use more, but I think as more of a fairy tale, it can still stand. But the third one just doesn't really have it.
Then you know what? All right, I think I agree with you about the number 2. You could take the fairy tale, and it was I think it's when I looked at the credits, 3 women are responsible for creating it.
Mm-hmm.
They could have taken it if it's a fairy tale and it's about really a controlling relationship. Then, hey, dig a little deeper into your own either experience or what is it you want to say about these things?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they suck. We get that, but what in particular sucks about it? There's another detail, a deeper, even more interesting detail about men who do this, because it's about men who do this to women. Okay, what else does that do to the woman? Show us the process of that breaking down process, because, well, now that's kind of interesting. Take us inside her head a little bit deeper. So show us the horror of what that is to be gaslighted from, well, I know this is this, to I'll believe anything you tell me.
Right.
Let's take us inside the gaslit experience. Well, okay, that's kind of interesting. Take us deeper into what it is to suddenly surrender.
That makes sense. All right. Well, that wraps up this episode. Al, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you had a good time.
Thank you for inviting me as always, Jason. Anytime, man.
Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone for listening and watching. I would really appreciate it if you give us a rating and review on iTunes, a rating on Spotify, a like and subscribe on YouTube, and also check us out on TikTok at Dads from the Crypt Talk. And with that, I thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.